video, I mentioned getting the Naked Basics palette, and this is the latest thing from Urban Decay. It's a 6-color neutral palette with mostly matte colors. I instantly thought this is something that could definitely be duped. You could definitely come up with similar colors in more affordable palettes or just other palettes you might already own. So I have been looking through my collection and I've dug up some individual dupes. Also, I found these colors within one entire palette, and then I've also grabbed some other palettes that have mostly similar colors to this. Just to describe these shades first so I don't end up doing that over and over again throughout the whole video. The first color, Venus, is kind of a pearly white shade. That's the most shimmery color in this. Everything else is a little more matte. Foxy is kind of a buttery matte shade. Walk of Shame is about the same depth as Foxy, but just with a more pinky tone to it. Naked 2, just a really light brown. Faint is a medium to dark brown, depending on how much you build that color up. And then Crave is a matte black, but I have noticed looking up really close at it, I can note just the finest amount of shimmer. It's really not apparent very much in a swatch, and it doesn't transfer onto the eye very much, but just so you know, I believe that's in there if my eyes aren't fooling me. So that is Naked Basics. First off, I'll just share the drugstore shades that are dupes for each of these colors. This is mainly for people who maybe just one or two of those shades appealed to you and you were just wondering what you might be able to pick up that was similar. My dupe for Venus from the drugstore is Milani's Pearl. It has just that subtle amount of shimmer and totally the same color tone. My dupe for Foxy is in the NYX Eyeshadow Trio. It's the shade labeled Nude. It has that same kind of buttery tone to it. My dupe for Walk of Shame is Wet n Wild's Brulee. It's the same color tone, same texture, just totally matte color. My dupe for Naked 2 is back in that NYX Eyeshadow Trio I just showed you, and it's actually the shade labeled Dark Brown. I wouldn't classify really this shade as being dark brown, so don't take the title too literally. I don't think Naked 2 is exactly a dark brown either, although Naked 2 in the Urban Decay palettes comes off a little bit deeper than it appears to be in the palette, and this shade looks a little darker, but I promise it is really close to the Urban Decay color. My dupe for Faint is this Rimmel Glam Eyes single in Dusk. It's just a great brown. This one also has a wonderful texture, just like the one in the Urban Decay palette has. In fact, this one may have a little less fallout than that one. Crave is your matte black color in the Urban Decay palette, and I have found several options for you for that from the drugstore. One is the Wet n Wild Color Icon single in Panther. This is a completely matte black. Another one is from Rimmel, and it's the Glam Eyes single in Jet Black. This one's very blendable. And finally, one of the richest blacks probably in my whole collection is this Milani single in Pitch Black. So rich, I mean, it is just as black can be. I know a couple years ago, maybe more, the Coastal Scents 88 Warm palette was getting a lot of buzz, and this is a palette I still come back to and use every now and then, but this truly does have dupes for every shade of the Naked Basics palette, so I will walk you through those. This shade right here is Venus. This color is Foxy. Right below that is Walk of Shame. This brown right here is Naked 2. Right below that is your dupe for Faint. And over here, this matte black is Crave. And here's a look at those swatches. It's always great when you can find those exact dupes like I've showed you already, but I feel like sometimes there are certain palettes that are just close enough, you know, to get you that look, especially where these pretty common neutral shades are concerned. And I had a few other palettes that I just thought maybe I'll give these a mention, and if people already have these, then they can kind of see like, all right, well maybe I don't need the Naked Basics, or you can just judge for yourself how close you think they are. But one is the NYX Butt Naked Eyes. I feel like in this palette there are shades that are pretty close and can give you the overall same tone of the look that you get with Naked Basics. So I'll show you those. This shade right here is Venus. This is a dupe for Foxy. This is pretty close for Walk of Shame, maybe a little more pinky tone. This is Naked 2. This brown right down here is pretty close to Faint. And this is your black, which is known as Crave. As you can see, the Walk of Shame shade on the bottom, a little more pinky, maybe just a little more bold than the one right above it. But I think your deeper shades in Butt Naked Eyes are some pretty good options. I also have Sigma's Bare palette, and for every shade except Foxy, I found a pretty close dupe in here. Your dupe for Venus is this shimmery shade on the end called Approach. There wasn't anything close to Foxy in here. The next lightest shade, though, called Elope, is pretty dead on for Walk of Shame. Act is pretty similar in color tone to Naked 2, but it does contain some shimmer, so just be aware of that. Hitch is a good dupe for Faint. And Control is your dupe for Crave. Really nicely textured shades in these Sigma palettes. It does remind me quite a bit of the Urban Decay colors. You can see there with that Naked 2 dupe, it's been kind of a hard one to find exact dupes for. The one I found here in this palette does contain a little bit of sparkle, but other than that, those are the colors. And finally, I wanted to mention the Coastal Scents 28 Neutral palette. This also contains some pretty similar shades. This color right down here is Venus. This shade is Foxy. Above that, a shade with a little bit more of a pinky tone. That's Walk of Shame. Right over here, Naked 2, as you'll see in the swatch, this is a little bit warm for that shade. Down here, your dupe for Faint. Right next to that is your dupe for Crave. And as you can see in the swatches, most of the colors are pretty close. I'm not real proud of that Naked 2 dupe, but there just wasn't anything closer in that palette, so that was my closest shot at the dupe. But you definitely have some options if you own this Coastal Scents 28 Neutral palette. So that wraps up my dupe ideas for the Urban Decay Naked Basics palette. In a sense, I was a little surprised at how quickly I came up with these dupes. It took me pretty much a solid hour to do it, whereas with a lot of my other dupe videos where I'm duping like blushes or different products here and there, I mean, it can take me over the course of days. You know, I work on it for a while, I get frustrated one day, I come back to it another day, but this was really pretty simple, and I think it just shows how truly basic this palette is. I love the texture of Urban Decay colors, and it is convenient to have them all in one kit like this, but like you saw, there are some other kits where they also have them, and you might already own those palettes. And then if there's only certain shades you want, there are some individuals that dupe them as well. And just a tip, if you're trying to find dupes for yourself sometime, don't always judge just by how it looks, you know, in the eyeshadow pan. Swatching really makes a difference because there are certain shades that come off deeper than they appear, or they come off less pigmented or less saturated than they appear in the containers. So that's why I always swatch to find a dupe. I hope this was helpful for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've got some other palette you're just itching to find dupes for, and I will see what I can do. So see you later. Bye.